Thank you, Aki, and thank you everyone who is here today. You know, and I realized that as I walked up here, that I walked past a bank of blast furnaces at 2,000 degrees. And I don't know if you realize this, but this place is on fire, literally, and it's kind of a funny feeling standing in this, but I thought of it as maybe we could call this the transformational Thunderdome of Tacoma, and hopefully you're experiencing some great transformation to this point. So I'm excited to talk to you about some transforming ideas. Let's go ahead and start with this chart. Take a look at this graph. Interesting study that tracked judges as they decided on parole applications for prisoners. Now, on the right-hand side, you'll see the percent approval, okay? The percent approval rate is on the right, and then the bottom represents the progression of cases during the day. This is a 2-year study, 1,000 cases, 8 judges, and this graph represents the exact pattern of decision-making for every single one of the judges every time. Now, what they discovered there, it may be dawning on you what they discovered there, is that if the prisoner's petition was slotted at the beginning of the day or right after the meal break, notice the vertical lines for the meal break. If the prisoner's petition was slotted at the beginning of the day or right after the meal break, chances were pretty good. But if the prisoner's petition was slotted right before the meal break, chances were almost absolutely zip. You weren't getting out of jail, pal. So if the judge is feeling fresh, prisoners get a fair hearing. But if the judge is feeling tired and hungry, prisoners get more time in prison. Now, I thought when I looked at this, I thought, can you imagine being the prisoner in the wrong slot and seeing this graph? I mean, for crying out loud, give that judge a cookie or a sandwich or something. I'm desperate here. Now, I'd like to thank the TED committee for slotting me today. Right before lunch, right there at the base of the graph. I'm just glad this isn't a petition for parole. I'd probably see a lot of thumbs down from the audience because it's time to eat. And actually, for those of you just waking up because you heard the word cookie, I actually gave all of you a Snickers bar so that you can enjoy that right now. In fact, this TED Talk is brought to you by Snickers. You aren't you when you're hungry. Seriously though, obviously there's no commercial endorsement. The TED guys probably hate me for even saying that. Now they got to pay Snickers a lot of money. But serious about the snacks. Anything we can do to get ourselves up above the base of that graph. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about a serious issue. And this chart can be a little bit funny, but it also raises a serious question. And that is, why weren't those judges regulating their behavior and their schedule pattern and their break pattern and their eating pattern so that justice would properly be served? 50% of those people weren't getting justice because a judge was hungry and tired. That is a bad thing. And it is just one of many questions in a serious issue that I'm raising, a self-regulation crisis that is going on in America and around the world. Self-regulation meaning our power to control our lives and effectively and intelligently direct them toward the best possible outcome. Questions like, why don't we always eat right? And I know I just gave you a Snickers bar, unfair question, but it's serious. Why don't we always eat right? Or why don't we exercise? Or why do we put things off? Or why isn't business better? Why aren't people getting along? Why aren't we better at controlling our lives? Why aren't we better at regulating ourselves towards better places? Today I'm going to be talking to you about a solution to the self-regulation crisis I call the code. Unlocking new power to help you solve problems and get things done. Here's what's amazing about what we're going to talk about today. All 7 billion of us human beings, every moment of our existence, are operating by these fundamental laws. but we're doing it automatically, and we're doing it unconsciously, and we don't know that we're doing it. But there is a group of people, numbering less than 1,000 on earth, who know exactly what that code is. And that code represents the knowledge behind all purpose-driven thought and behavior, and it gives us incredible power to not run our lives by default, but to run by design. You know, the truth is we can run by default. You know, a fish doesn't know how it swims, but that doesn't stop it, right? Toddler doesn't know how she walks, but that doesn't stop her from walking. Same is true with us. Automatically, unconsciously, we are following this code in everything we think, say, and do. We don't know about it. That doesn't stop us. But you know what? I think it's tragic that less than 1,000 people on earth of the 7 billion out there actually know these fundamental laws, and we're going to change that today. Nearly every major personal and social problem involves some kind of self-regulation failure. Let me say that again. Every major personal and social problem. I'm giving you a big list of these problems, not because I'm going to talk about all these items, but just to give you this impression. For every single word on that screen, we are talking about trillions of dollars every single year of social value being smoked away, eaten away, and lost in some way. We're talking about millions of people who are literally dying. We're talking about billions of people who are struggling. And all of us know, if you look on the list, we're probably all up there somewhere, and we feel the personal pain. This is more than statistics. This is more than just information. This is about our real lives, about the real struggles that we face, about the real problems that we feel like we can't fix. You know, the challenge is the experts with the best solution to this massive, multi-trillion-dollar, multi-million person killing, multi-billion-dollar struggling problem aren't even in the discussion. Which leads me to two big questions that we're going to answer today. Who are they? And what's their solution? So let's talk about first who they are. You know, if you ask around, you'll find who they're not. Ask anyone, what are the 5 fundamental laws of self-regulation? The business guru can't give you an answer. The self-help guru can't give you an answer. Ask your teacher, and she'll probably be mad at you for making her look stupid. She can't give you the answer. Ask your parents, can't give you the answer. There's a lot of people out there who care deeply about this massive self-regulation crisis that we're in, but don't have this answer. And that really bothers me. It reminds you ever heard of Saxe's poem of the 6 blind men of Indostan touching the elephant? You know, one blind man touches the wall or touches the sides, says it feels like a wall. The other touches the trunk, you know, says it feels like a snake. And one touches the tusk and says it feels like a spear. Well, they're all part right, but they're missing that big picture. They don't see the whole elephant. But then there's this group I keep talking about that see. And not to discredit anyone in this arena who wants to solve these problems and knows these issues. I'm not trying to discredit any of them. I'm just saying that when it comes to happiness and purpose and self-regulation and everything in between, something is missing. Something critical is missing. And no one in those groups has it. You know, I met one of these 1,000 people on a flight from Boston. His name is Rodney. He is the professor of robotics at MIT, and he's the entrepreneur behind the Roomba vacuum cleaning robot. You know, the one on YouTube the cats always ride around, right? You've seen that before? Roomba Rodney is the entrepreneur behind that, and he knows how smart machines work. He knows how self-regulation works. And that means that Roomba Rodney is part of what I call the elite engineers who design intelligent self-regulating machines. The elite engineers who design intelligent self-regulating machines number less than 1,000 on Earth, and they give us nav systems, they give us cruise controls, they give us thermostats, they give us all the intelligent devices that we see out there. And the question is, who are these people and how did they come to discover this? See, what happened is these engineers in the 50s and 60s, and as the technology proliferated, they began to discern the fundamental operating principles of our own intelligence. And they extracted that out, and then they reverse engineered it and planted it into the machines. And in so doing, they were able to discover what these laws actually were. They were able to make conscious what was unconscious literally for thousands and thousands of years. And they discovered, as they pulled these things out, that they could prove that they knew these laws because the machines work. And they also are the right group to tell us what these answers are because they love what's called irreducible simplicity. You ever heard the saying that the optimist tells us that the glass is always half full, right? Pessimist says the glass is always half empty. But the engineer says there's twice as much glass as is needed. If it's always half full, if it's always half empty, obviously we're wasting glass. They don't like wasting glass. They don't like wasting time. They don't like wasting steps. Have you guys ever seen the spring-loaded mousetrap? You know that one with 6 little parts, little wooden board? That's an example of an irreducibly simple machine. It's got 6 parts. If you take any one of those 6 parts out, we don't catch mice. So these engineers discovered these irreducibly simple laws and began to prove that they know, and as a result, we have something called the code. Now I look at that dial on the screen and I imagine that as like a 5-tumbler combination lock on the big vault door of possibility to open up solutions, to give us new power to address this self-regulation crisis. You see, if it's not 4 laws, it's not 6 laws. You're not going to see me come out with another book that says, oh, the 6th law of self-regulation. There's only 5. There's not 4, only 5. And when we know how to turn the dials right, amazing things can happen. So let's unlock this vault and find out what this even is. The 5 laws are represented by Circa, which is an acronym that stands for a cycle of ideal, real, compare, and act. Now, I'm not normally an acronym guy, but in this case, it really works well. It's an easy way to remember the laws. Circa is Latin for the word around, and it represents this circular, cyclical nature of self-regulation. Again, in its simplest form, Circa is a cycle of ideal, real, compare, and act. Let's take a look at Circa at work in the simple, self-regulating machine that we all know and love, the thermostat and furnace system in our home. It has the amazing ability to reach 71 degrees in our house no matter how many times my teenagers open the front door. All right? What does it do first? It asks you to set the temperature. That is a set point, and it's represented by the law, define and measure the ideal. And then it's got a sensor on it that actually detects the real temperature of the room, and that is define and measure the real. Once ideal and real are defined, we compare the differences. There's an internal calculator, a little if-then lookup table that says, if too high, do this. If too low, do this, and makes a decision, and that decision goes in the form of electrical signal down the wire to the 4th principle, which is act to reduce differences. Turn on the furnace. Send hot air into the room. Act. Final principle is cycle. It continues to measure ideal, real, compare, and act over and over, intelligently adjusting along the way until ideal matches real. And you'll find that even when ideal matches real, the system still keeps spinning. It maintains what I call dynamic stability. You ever seen a top spinning on a table? Well, it's completely stationary. Or is it? No, it's spinning in place. And if you feel stuck, it might be that you're actually spinning in place around a preset ideal. Truth is, our bodies are just like this thermostat. Ideal for us, 98.6. Real, let's say it's nice and warm out. I'm dreaming of better things as I walk out the door. It's too hot outside. Okay? Compare the differences. If too hot, then do something. Sends a signal down to the bottom of me, says send fluid to the outer skin of Erik in the form of sweat to cool him down. And over again, this works. Now, it's not just about physiology. It's about psychology as well. It's about the way we think. I imagine our minds are like a vast 1,000-room hotel. And in each room, we have a thermostat that represents what we feel comfortable with, the comfort zone in our finances, the comfort zone in our relationships, the comfort zone in whether we choose to smoke tobacco or not. Comfort zone after comfort zone, thermostat after thermostat, and unfortunately, there's dust almost on every dial. You know, I was able to use these principles to help myself. They're not just about machines. I was able to lose 15 pounds of fat by applying these principles to myself 3 years ago and have kept it off. I was able to help another friend of mine lose 50 pounds. I was able to help a Harvard Business School professor build a consulting practice that is 10 times its previous value in just 18 months. I was able to help people in their finances. This is something that applies literally to every area of our life, individually, organizationally, culturally. It all applies. And whenever purpose is failing, it basically boils down to a code violation. One or more of these laws is being violated. Either we have the wrong cycle. We're cycling wrong. We've got a missing or misplaced ideal. We've got a disconnect with the real. We've got the wrong compare. We've got a missing or misplaced act. When any one of these fails, purpose fails. So in the spirit of irreducible simplicity, let me sum up what I've said to you today. You know, all of us are fundamentally wired to solve problems and get things done. And the better we solve and do, the happier we are. But unfortunately, we're not solving and doing like we could. And it's creating a crisis, and we don't know why. But is there anyone who can help? Yes, someone we wouldn't suspect. These elite engineers who design intelligent, self-regulating machines. They know how self-regulation works. They know how to intelligently pursue a goal. And they have these principles. So what if we could understand them too? We could diagnose, and we could fix, and we could better set and reach our goals, and we could find more happiness in solving problems and getting things done. You know, when the lights finally went on for me, it took me about 20 years to discover this. I know that kind of makes me a little bit slow. But when the lights finally went on for me, I wondered, how much time and money and opportunity have I lost in living without this code? And why didn't someone tell me this earlier? Well, I'm not sure, but I know this. It's time for us to take the code to the world. I dream of a code-literate world, a place where billions of people are using it to improve their lives, a place where millions of leaders and workers are using it to transform their companies, and a place where we are mobilizing the masses for the greater good. And I believe that dream can, in big ways and small, become a reality. And that makes the code an idea worth spreading. Let's spread the code. Thank you.